Welcome to this is the third podcast that we've had, right?
Episode number 3.
We've made it to episode 3, so that's good. Usually shows will end before episode 3, so the fact that we got here, it's a victory on its own.
Yeah, we're super proud of it. I mean, here we are, 3 episodes in. It's been 3 weeks.
And now we have Manny filling in for Diego this week.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure we should be good. Yeah. Manny's got it. Manny is a very good communicator, I think. And
that's nice. That's very nice of you. I think that might be a little too nice, but
it's the truth, man. I mean, we were having some technical difficulties, and it's good that we talk about that because we're trying to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
We were having some technical issues starting the show today, but one thing that I was telling Manny is that I'm really glad that he's a problem solver, and we kept everything positive, and we were able to adjust to everything.
Yeah, we just figured it out, man. You just got to take everything in stride, and I think we've done a pretty good job with that.
We had to switch cameras around, memory cards and everything, but we're here, we're live, and we're happy about what we're going to be talking about today, which should be a lot of interesting topics that affect a lot of people in Arkansas, but talking about just in general the things that have happened this week.
Yeah,
the Razorbacks have a new coach, right?
Yeah. That's something I'm super excited about. You know, we talking about issues in Arkansas. As an Arkansan, we're entering this new chapter. The athletic director Hunter Yurachek, you know, he's kind of gotten his hires. He's got Chad Morris on football. He's got Musselman hired from Nevada onto our basketball team. So we got this whole new chapter that the athletic director is going to be judged on. Obviously, Arkansans love their football and their basketball, and so we're getting into this. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to see how it all plays out. I like him a lot. The things that I have seen, he's really into character development. He's really into maximizing the potential of a team. So we'll see how it works.
Yeah, a lot of people weren't happy that Anderson was let go.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he's a long time Arkansan, you know, and everybody's kind of had their heart out for him. I hated to see him go. I was a fan, but you know, it's still business. People come and go, and luckily it seems like we do have a good person hired right now.
And we leave it to Manny to talk about local sports because honestly, when it comes to local sports, I don't know nothing about. I know Manny was involved in sports in high school.
Yeah.
So you played in the football team for the Springdale Bulldogs, right?
Yeah. I played football since I was in junior high. So I was a linebacker. I was a small linebacker and defensive end. But yeah, I mean, I love sports. I covered sports shortly for Univision for a little bit. But yeah, it just got me more involved with that whole community. I try to keep up as much as I can because, you know, I went to the U of A. I'm a big Hog fan. So.
And you also got some insider information as well because your cousin, Alex Tejada, played for the Razorbacks as well.
Right. So we're all Hogs.
I bet, man.
We're a Hog family for sure. I mean, my whole family went to school there. So,
man, we're glad to have you on board and for filling in and for being here. And we're going to have you on the show. You're going to be one of the hosts going forward as well for different episodes.
Looks like it.
But is there any other information you want to tell the people that are listening, just so they can kind of get to know you a little bit better?
As far as me, I work in downtown Springdale. I'm going to do a quick plug to my day job at Black Apple Crossing, the first and only hard cidery in Arkansas.
Hey.
So, yeah, come check us out. We got a little tap room in 321 East Emma Ave.
There's some good pizza in the back as well.
Yeah. We've always got some kind of food truck. So, yeah, that's my spot. I always tell people, come check out the venue. It's awesome. I'm the venue coordinator there.
Hey.
So,
and we need to go check it out. I know that we've been talking about it. And we're going to have a meeting there yesterday too.
Yeah.
But we need to go check it out. We were there when Megan Godfrey won.
Yes.
You know, her seat for state representative. So it's a nice spot. It's a good place.
It's a good spot, and it's located right on downtown. So we get to be involved with all of the issues that happen in Springdale. It keeps us involved with all of the community outreach that you and I worry about, and that kind of leads us into this next thing. You know, we've had a lot of stuff going on in our state that affects the Latinx community. And so
that's a good segue, by the way.
Yeah,
you just maneuvered into that.
That was pretty good. That's a little journalistic experience right there.
And we're excited about bringing our guest. I've known this guest for quite a few years now. She's actually one of the reasons why I ended up meeting and going out with my now wife, Myra. And she's also does a lot of work in the community. She's been an advocate in the community for quite a few years now, has worked for different organizations, and has continued to be outspoken about issues that are affecting our immigrant communities. So we want to invite to join us immigration advocate Michel Rangel. Woo! Hey.
Hi, thank you.
What's
You
up?
really built me up there with
Superstar
all my
coming
experience
in.
now.
WWE superstar, make your walk.
I should have picked out a song to walk in on or something.
That would have been, what would be your song?
That would-
Oh my God, on the spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna just throw you in there.
Dang. Maybe Caro by Bad Bunny.
Okay.
That's my jam.
So that's perfect. Diego's a big Bad Bunny fan as well.
He was
so-
probably going to watch this and be like, hey. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he-
He's probably one of the reasons that Hiro and I even started listening to Bad Bunny, because him and Hiro did a fast together in DC for the Dream Act, and Hiro comes back from that. He's
Hiro's
like,
your husband.
Yes. And so the whole time he tells me, like, Diego's been playing Bad Bunny nonstop. I hate Bad Bunny. And sooner or later, he just kind of like got into it. And I was like, I thought you hated Bad Bunny. And then he was like, no, I think, yeah, kind of works.
Hated Bad Bunny?
Yeah.
I think he grows on everybody, and he does so much for Puerto Rico. You know, he's a great advocate for Latinx people. So
and he's so outspoken on like gender fluidity, and it's just like not the person that I guess you would expect him to be by listening just to his music. But then you see like his interviews, and you see like the way he dresses, the way he presents himself, and it's just like, all right, I dig this.
yeah.
Myra still doesn't like him though. Like I've tried to put like different types of songs, like even the romantic songs that he puts out, but she still doesn't. Maybe she'll come around eventually, the same way Hiro did.
Yeah.
Maybe. But talking about a lot of the important issues that I guess have came into our hearts these past few days, and since last week, that we wanted to discuss with you, Michelle. And I know that we've worked on different events together. You've been around the entire community here, not only in Northwest Arkansas, but in Fort Smith, always advocating for the Dreamers, for the undocumented community just in general, and for all types of different communities that are part of our immigrant community in general. And we wanted to discuss these past 3 bills that have kind of came across us, and we've kind of been talking, whether it being through texting or in person. And that is, first of all, the bill that would allow documented people to become licensed nurses. And also, we wanted to discuss the tuition equity bill that would allow documented students to be able, and not only documented students, but people from the Marshallese community and from the immigrant community.
Yeah, those that can prove like their legal status.
Yeah. And then SB, I think it's SB 411, right? That we heard about, and it's been quite toxic. So I guess we can kind of start talking about just the bill that would allow documented people to become legalized nurses. Is that the correct term? Is it legalized nurses, or is that
licensed
Licensed
nurses?
nurses.
I think,
Licensed
to be able
nurses.
to take their licensing exam.
And that one doesn't have any kind of negative effects, that based on what we have heard.
From what I know, Arkansas has a shortage of nurses
A
to
big
begin
shortage.
with. And so this will only help and encourage more people to be able to take that exam and to help their communities.
And that one was filed by Representative Megan Godfrey from Springdale, which we're so happy, specifically knowing that the immigrant community was the one that put her there, that came out to vote in big numbers and got her across the finish line. And she has delivered since then, always advocating and trying her best to make sure that we pass bills that help out our immigrant communities. So we can't really, there's nothing bad to talk about that bill. That bill is just, we're happy, we're glad that it's gone through and it's on its way to the governor's desk. But there's other bills that unfortunately aren't like that. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, it proves the power of elections and local elections. When you get representatives and people voted into office that include diversity in their train of thought and in their policy, it's super important. But also, that goes into the next thing that you were talking about is, there's some inclusiveness and sometimes there's exclusivity as well.
And it's difficult to kind of feel good about something that leaves a lot of people out, but we can't feel bad about it either, because it's giving people opportunities that you see. Me as a citizen, I can't really say, we shouldn't support this bill, because it's going to help out a lot of people that are documented, and we're talking about the tuition equity bill. And I know that you had your opinions on it, and I think you cover a really interesting perspective, Michelle, because you were once undocumented, you were documented, became a resident, and now you're a citizen. You'll be able to vote. So there's a lot of different perspectives there that come into play in regards to like how your opinion is formulated. So I kind of want to hear what you have to say about that bill.
Yeah, I think in the time since I even became involved in the immigrant rights movement, like in 2012, when I was like a high school graduate, undocumented, looking at my university options and realizing that there were, very few, because of the requirement to have legal status in this country. And there was a lot of opportunities that I had to say no to because they were just out of the financial range of my family. So for example, I wanted to play soccer in college, and I looked at universities like UCA, like Ozark, like Central Baptist, and some of those are private institutions that could have given me like certain scholarships, but then you can't stack scholarships and their tuitions are very high as well. And so I was looking at like maybe like $10,000 a semester. And so I had to say no to those opportunities and kind of just accept those setbacks. And as I've moved through, my educational experience and through like all these different statuses and learning that they really didn't make me any different of a person necessarily, but it did change how people kind of viewed me, which is horrible because they were just pieces of plastic that arrived at my house.
That's toxic.
That I just got lucky to be able to apply for. I didn't even know that I was eligible for residency until I applied for DACA, and then that was a complete surprise. And I didn't even want to tell my friends that I had gotten that residency status because I had met so many people who couldn't qualify for DACA or were waiting on their DACA or just didn't know what the future of that was going to be. And I just didn't feel like I deserved it. Like it's not a merit-based system or anything like that. It was just all of these different factors and laws and things that my family just happened to find themselves in created like this perfect circumstance that allowed me and my mom to be able to get residency. And because of that, I was able to get in-state tuition. I was able to apply for FAFSA. I was able to apply for the lottery scholarship. So it just like completely turned my world upside down. And I just reflected a lot about like what that meant and who that was going to make me as a person. And then in November, I got to become a citizen. I took my citizenship exam.
Congrats.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
So I passed it. And, sometimes even now I'm kind of conflicted when people tell me congrats because it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I didn't really do anything that different or special to deserve that. And so it's been really important for me to remember like where I've come from and to remember the limitations that I once had on me and to just not take for granted the opportunities that I have now. And so when I look at advocacy across the nation and in our state, that's in a way who I'm still advocating for, like my 18-year-old self or the kid that I was whenever I crossed the border with my parents. I think about all the unaccompanied children that I see day to day now, and I'm thinking about how the legislation, the actions that we're taking now are going to affect them in the future, because it's like the new wave of migration that's happening right now. And when I saw the in-state tuition bill for the first time, it had so much potential because it just required you to have graduated from an Arkansas high school and to have lived here for, I think, 3 to 5 years, and be able to prove that. Nothing regarding legal status. And I was like so ecstatic because I was like, dang, like this is going to be able to continue those aspirations for higher education that so many kids and so many parents come to this country looking forward to. For the longest time, talking about like the DREAM Act and talking about comprehensive immigration reform, talking to parents and them telling me like, like whatever they give us, like, that's fine. But I want my kids to go to school, or I want my kids to be safe. And, like, their kids are always their top priority when thinking about what they want legislation to do. And, you know, that's very selfless of them. And so I think then as immigrant kids, you know, we always think like, well, I want to do something for my parents too, you know? And so I think that's why there's always like been like these divides within activism that are like, you know, we come at this crossroads of like, do we want to do something just for the kids, or do we want to do something that includes parents too? And, you know, it's just like these things that happen, but it's because, you know, we want to be considerate of all. And I think it was the Monday before the bill was voted on, that an amendment was made that was going to change the requirements to the in-state tuition bill to where only those who could prove that they had some type of legal status were going to be able to receive in-state tuition. So this leaves out so many undocumented kids that, you know,
our friends.
Yeah, our friends. You know, and I felt so horrible, to be completely honest, because, you know, I saw that bill and I trusted that that's how it was going to be in all its original format, you know. And it wasn't until one of my friends who was going to be affected by that change pointed that out to me, like, hey, did you know that they made this amendment? You know, this means that I wouldn't qualify. And I was just heartbroken, because for this particular friend, it felt like we had failed them once again, because they didn't qualify for DACA. They could have qualified for extended DACA, but that wasn't approved in the courts. They could have qualified for the DREAM Act, but that didn't pass. And so it was just like all these opportunities and like false hopes that had built up. And then somehow, like here in Arkansas, of all places, we were about to do right by that person and be like, you know what, like these people deserve an opportunity, because, you know, things have happened with DACA to where, you know, new applications haven't been taken for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. So in these 2 years, there are people who are now DACA eligible who are not able to apply for it through no fault of their own, because that was something that was, you know, taken on by Trump and was decided later on in the courts that that's the policy that they were going to uphold. Extended DACA didn't go through. You know, there was a tie in the Supreme Court, so the lower court's decision was upheld, which was a no. And just people getting left out of these,
right.
That policy.
And the thing is, the people that are getting left out aren't, you know, the adults that are bringing over. It's the kids, it's the teenagers, it's the people that have like gone through the American school system and have taken the classes and have taken the test that, you know, you are requiring to get into a college, to get into a university, and you're just saying, no, we're gonna take away some of that opportunity, to no fault of your own, to nothing that you've done wrong. Yeah. That there's nothing that makes this person who happened to be born here, who may have lesser grades or lesser merit, have a better opportunity financially. Because ultimately, you know, that's the reason immigrants come here, is because there is more financial opportunity, there's educational opportunity, but now it's getting stripped away from some of those people, from people that really didn't do anything to deserve that.
Yeah. Or even just in general, like the parents. I feel like even our parents didn't. I personally feel didn't do anything wrong to begin with. You know, they're here because they want a better opportunity for their children to be able to be more successful, to have their own career, to have their own business. So even then, I mean, it's very very difficult, because we've not only battled with this situation that's been happening these past few days, but for many years we've battled with the situation of undocumented youth having access to in-state tuition in some or just protection just in general on their immigration status, while our parents, our grandparents, and our uncles and aunts, family members still don't. You know, so it's like it's difficult, because it's one of those situations where like we're only getting part of what we want, and we understand that it's difficult to get everything, but it's so hard to be happy that some people are protected, can get a driver's license, while our parents and other relatives are still living in the shadows and scared, you know?
Yeah. And I guess I was just upset and disappointed because, you know, it was the governor and Senate Republicans who were putting pressure on having that amendment included, or else they weren't going to vote on it. You know, so para mí se me hizo como que nomás echaron su berrinche, and then all of a sudden we're like, you know what, let's just take what we can get and we'll let them add the amendment. I don't know if that's truly how the sentiment was. I wasn't there, of course. But I just felt that we have to know going in how much we're willing to compromise on certain issues. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that the DREAM Act hasn't passed, because we weren't willing to compromise on additional border security, on more detention centers, on wall funding. We said no, like, I guess, like, don't give us, you know, the DREAM Act. We tried to shut down the government, and then eventually, you know, Democrats caved in and stuff. And so we really can't put all of our faith into believing that things are going to be done fairly just because it's the right thing to do. We really have to pay attention and strategize and decide where we're going to draw the line. And I just felt that we should have thought about the program of DACA for itself as such a frail and, you know, just the fine thread of a program, because it's already been attacked so many times. And we're already eliminating like half of the population in Arkansas that could be DACA recipients right now. The Migration Policy Institute estimates that right now DACA recipients in Arkansas are around 4,780. But DACA eligible youth, as without DACA extended, like how the rules have been set since 2012, 8,000 people are eligible. And so there's like literally 4,000 other students that could qualify for DACA but can't because of what happened in 2017, you know. And so we should have thought about that. We should have thought about what happens if DACA is taken away. You know, what if, Dios no quiera, but what if like Trump does succeed, and, you know, now he has like the Supreme Court, you know, not supposed to be biased, but it is, you know, kind of like wavering onto the Republican side, and say they do take on DACA in the next cycle. They didn't pick it up this cycle, but say they do the next one and then it gets taken away and you only have your permit for whatever is left on it. You know, we just have to think of those worst case scenarios. I hate to, but I'm an anxious human being, so it's like in my nature by now, and through all the things that I've been through, like with my family, you know, we always thought of worst case scenario. You know, what happens if my dad gets picked up today, or what happens, you know, if my mom doesn't come home from work, and those kinds of things. So if we would have thought about those worst case scenarios and pushed for a bill that would have just, you know, covered Arkansan graduates who have been here, then we wouldn't have to depend on upholding DACA, which is also not what we want to begin with.
It's a federal policy anyways. It's like,
and it's an executive order.
Yeah.
It's not even a law. And I think that I'm so critical now because myself, whenever DACA came out, it was when I was just getting started in the movement. And when Barack Obama made the announcement, I thought we had the DREAM Act. I thought it was done.
Yeah,
I was like,
everybody
dang,
kinda did,
I've only been involved for like 2 months and they're already passing like the DREAM Act.
Job
you know?
done, like
no.
mission accomplished.
Like I barely got in here. Not that it was like anything to do with me, ¿verdad? But just like, oh, what a moment to be involved. You know, the nation had a victory, and then I got to know like the reality of it and what could happen. You know, if a new president took office, and then there was like sort of a complacency, you know. Then instead of advocating for the DREAM Act, I think we all just turned into this mode of like, let's make sure as many people that can qualify for DACA apply for it, like ASAP. And so we got all into workshop mode. I don't think I even applied for DACA until like October, and applications like started going in like September. Okay, so maybe not that late. But, you know, we were just like in go mode, and the DREAM Act didn't become a priority until once again DACA was almost going to be rescinded. Right. And so I would hate for us to like constantly be in that reactive mode when we have an opportunity to be proactive, and kind of like think about more than just DACA recipients, and also think about the message that we're sending whenever we accept that only this very, very, now we're learning, small group of people.
And it seems to get narrower and narrower.
Exactly. And And, you know, it's almost making it seem like DACA is the utmost status, you know, to have. If you have DACA, we're going to fight for you. You know, we're going to make sure, because you have a legal program that's backing you. Right. And we forget that before DACA, nobody had a legal program backing them, and we were fighting for everyone. Right. You know, and there's still those people out there. So we can't. And I'm not trying to say, like, I'm not trying to diss, like, people with DACA. I'm not going to say, like, my husband has DACA or anything like that. I'm not going to pull, like, your friend, you know, my friend has this, so I can't be that or whatever. But, I mean, we knew going in with Donald Trump coming into office that we just had to think outside of the box in our advocacy. We had to, like, push harder than we ever have before, and be really authentic and genuine with people. And I guess I was just also upset that there wasn't this transparency on the day of the vote what that amendment meant. Yeah,
and I knew, you know how I knew that you were really passionate about this? That I saw you update your Facebook status twice in one day. So I was like, I know she's passionate about
it. I'm not on Facebook at all.
She came back and said,
I
was like, man, she's really passionate about this. And Myra was telling me how you were really upset. And I think we all were. I think there's like a conflict because it feels like we're not being grateful for what we're given, but it also feels like we're scapegoats all the time. So it's like we kind of get the crumbs of like, okay, you can have this for the time being, but yeah, we're like, but we need this. Our parents need this. Like our documented our friends that are not documented, they need this. Like they need to live. They need to be able to get a driver's license. But it's like when we kind of speak out, it makes it look like we're being ungrateful, but we're not. People need to understand that this is not only just a bill for us, it's our lives. You know, like we go home and see our parents, see our friends, see people within our family that don't qualify for good bills like this, and it becomes personal. I mean, we can't like avoid the hurt that we feel on a day-to-day basis. So whenever we're outspoken about this, people shouldn't take offense to it and say, you know, we're not being grateful. No, we
are grateful. Yeah,
we are, but we just need more. You know, like it's like it's not about us wanting it. We need it. Like our families
we deserve it.
Yeah, this is a good bill. It's a good bill, but it could have been a great bill. It had so much potential, like you were saying.
Like we're glad that the Marshallese community will also be able to benefit from it, and we're glad that a lot of immigrants from like the Indian community or other communities will be able to benefit from it. I mean, it hurts so much to see specifically a lot of our close friends that won't qualify and are still stuck in a limbo, you know? Yeah. And it's like a lot of these people's lives are just put in they're just paused because they can't continue to either get a driver's license or qualify for in-state tuition so they can continue their educational career. So I guess that's one of the core issues why we're just upset about it, but we're happy for the people that like qualify for it, you know?
I mean, it's the same thing that happened whenever DACA was first announced, that you found out that there were certain people that didn't qualify by like this close of a margin, you know? And then that was the reason.
People that deserved it.
Definitely. And then we heard of extended DACA, which was going to like kind of amplify the years and the age requirements. And it was just going to be able to kind of encapsulate more people. It was at the same time that DAPA came out, that was for parents of residents or citizens. And it just, I mean, there were also executive actions, but regardless, it just felt like that was having a little bit more of an inclusive effect. And I just don't know, and that's why it would have been, you know, so great to hear from someone that was at the Capitol, but I just don't know if it was clear by then, because it just wasn't clear, I think, to everyone what that amendment meant, right, and why that path was chosen. And I acknowledge that Arkansas has like a 4-month legislative session every other year. So there's like thousands of bills that have to like get run in committees and through the floor.
Last week, right?
Yeah, it's coming to an end.
Yeah, so there's like a lot to be done in such a short amount of time, and so senators and representatives have like a limited amount of time to be able to like process all of this and advocate for it and do whatever they can. And so I know that a lot of things were done in order to pass this, because it's been a process for so many years to get anything related to in-state tuition passed in the state. And so I'm not I don't want to dish on that or anything like that, or make it seem like it was just like a failed attempt or anything. But I think that as advocates, it's also our responsibility to make sure that in that short amount of time that our representatives and our senators understand the weight and the importance of what these bills mean, and to kind of like help them be the best advocates for us and our community as we can. And we just have to know going in, like, what we can tell them is going to be that line of, like, right. What is going to be that thing that says, like, well, if they're not going to do this, then I'm not. The same way that they said, if you don't put that amendment in, we're not going to vote on it. We should have the same ability to say, well, if you're going to do this, then we don't want to put it up either, or something. I don't know. I just don't know if, like, everyone felt good with the outcome was, and that's what I would also like to find out as well, because maybe I'm the only one that feels this way. I don't know, but I think that we have a responsibility there too. So
yeah, and that was just very difficult. Like I said, I spoke to a lot of the representatives, and they were saying, like, we also wish that we could have included more or have continued with the original plan, but the way things are, the way that they see it, is kind of like, we can at least get something. It's like a step forward. And I spoke to people from across the country that have had legislation and situation passed in their state, and they told me, like, this sucks. I know it sucks, but just know that your foot is in the door. Your foot is in the door to continue building, to continue advocating, to continue electing people. That's why elections are so important. Like, electing good people that are going to be understanding. And there's good people within both sides. I've learned this legislative session.
What did that sound like?
This legislative session, I've learned that there is good people, because the person that filed the original bill was State Representative Dan Douglas from Bentonville. He's a Republican. And the person that ran the DACA nurses bill, I believe, was Senator Lance Eads from Springdale, who's also Republican as well. So there's good people on both sides. I'm figuring out in this legislative session. But besides those two bills, there was also the bill SB 411 that just went down today. We just learned,
which is another victory.
Yeah, which is another victory on its own that should have been avoided to begin with, but it's there. So what are your thoughts on that just coming out of nowhere? Because that's what it felt like to me. It just came out of nowhere.
I just thought it was so interesting because in the last legislative session, there were two anti-sanctuary bills that were proposed. One was anti-sanctuary campuses, and the other one was anti-sanctuary cities.
The same guy, right?
It was two different guys. But listen to this. They both teamed up for this bill that they proposed this legislative session that was anti-sanctuary cities. And so
Senator, is it
Smith and Stubblefield.
And did you listen to, like, I was listening on my way over here, like, their reason for getting the bill?
Oh my God.
It didn't make sense. It literally sounded like it was just someone that, like, is literally anti-immigrant and are just coming up with, like, out of the ass excuses to pass bills like this, and they were asking them questions about their numbers, because their numbers, like, seemed like they literally just made up numbers, talking about how much money is spent on undocumented people in the education system, in receiving services, which we know undocumented people don't qualify for a lot of the public services, if not most of the public services that are offered. So it was just a bunch of lies, and I was just like, man, do people actually believe what these two guys are saying?
Yeah, two guys that obviously seem like they don't have the exposure to immigrants. Who really don't seem to have the knowledge about what actually is going on in the immigrant communities.
Yeah, and they said during their testimony, like, oh no, we love immigrants. We're all immigrants. Just like cringy things like that.
Those illegal immigrants, and it was like come on, really?
Yeah, the narrative kind of changed there.
But I think they were kind of put on the spot when they were asked questions. They were just kind of like, it's a fact. It's a fact.
I was so thankful for the people on that committee that asked such great questions, because there were, like, simple things that you would expect, like, you would know, like, what your bill even says. Because what the bill essentially said was, like, it defined what a sanctuary policy would be, you know. And so any city that would create a policy that did these, you know, certain things was going to be looked at. And so one of those things was if you enacted any kind of ordinance or so that prevented law enforcement officers from being able to ask about someone's status. And then when asked to clarify that line, I think it was Senator Stubblefield that was like, no, it says in the bill that this bill will prevent people from, you know, law enforcement officers from asking people about their status. But it was actually a description of what a sanctuary policy would do. It would prevent.
And
you know
again,
what I'm saying?
yeah. And again, you're getting into federal legal status within an in-state legislation. It's like, why are we having these federal policies come into our local communities?
And they were being asked questions about the bill, and I have the bullet points that were drawn here of the bill. They were being asked questions about the bill, and they didn't even know how to answer it, like just straight up. You know, like they were having to look back in the bill and being like, "Well, my bill says this and this," so they didn't even know what was going on. You know, so I think one of the things that we also need to talk about, Michelle, was that there was information going around that this bill would, for some reason, affect the two bills, the tuition equity bill and the DACA nurses, and that was not true. So we can just kind of tell the viewers that are, or the viewers or the people that are listening, that this bill wouldn't have affected those two bills to begin with.
No, because, and I think maybe there was like a miscommunication within the organization who put that out, because when it came time for the testimony, and only the executive director of that organization was able to testify, but because they actually cut off testimony and they limited it and then they ended it. Procedures. Yeah. And what she mentioned about DACA recipients was that they're just as likely as anybody else to be racially profiled, and because of that, you know, that might be an incentive for them, despite having these policies that will now allow them to be employed as nurses or attend universities at an equal rate as their colleagues, that they might choose to take that money elsewhere.
Yeah. I did see that.
So I think that was the clarification on that.
And it feels like they pay more attention when we talk about how it hurts their pockets, right? Like it's always about the money. People
there was a lot of economic points
all about the Benjamins.
It's always about like putting numbers on people, which I feel is very, very sad. But
I think there were like some humanistic qualities, anti-humanistic qualities to this bill that were brought up in the committee questions. I can't remember the representative's name, but, you know, Smith and Stubblefield were making a lot of accusations about higher crime rates for sanctuary cities and the danger that illegal aliens pose to
literally felt like Donald Trump
people.
talking points.
Yes. And so within that, there was a committee member who told them, like, you straight up can't equate crime to someone's status. Like, that's not fair. Anybody can commit a crime. You can't just make one equal the other automatically. And I think at one point, Smith also referenced something that happened to a woman in his family where she was hit, you know, with a car, you know, unfortunately, you know, hope she's okay.
Yeah, nobody wants accidents.
Nobody wants accidents, but what he pulled from that experience was that the people in the opposite car or truck all went running, and they were all undocumented immigrants.
Trying to figure that out.
How did he figure that out?
Kind of racist in a way.
Yeah, because that was
100%.
He said that there's no racial profiling in this bill, and to legitimize his reason for this bill, he
racially profiled. And
then he said, like, to make people feel bad, he was like, and I have to go back to get my truck and bring it back to my daughter and blah blah. And it's like, come on, you know, like, and like you said, like we're hopeful, and I think his daughter is okay, and she didn't have it wasn't too bad, but it's the continuing criminalizing communities, making up stuff just to make it seem like the undocumented community is dangerous, and there's no data that backs that up whatsoever.
Yeah. There was a senator that was like, you have to be sleeping under a log if you don't know that sanctuary cities are the most dangerous. And when I've seen like various studies that say the complete opposite, that they are safer because people are more willing to report crime. So guess what? You can't use someone's status against them to commit crimes crimes against them, because that's what happens most of the time. I mean, even here in Arkansas, where we have these 287G policies, you know, we have people that go to our county jails that are being put in deportation proceedings. Like, that's why that fear exists, not because of a sanctuary policy.
Right. And it's just trying to portray the immigrant as somebody that's not benefiting the community. You know, when immigrants are coming here, like we've been talking about, they come here to work, they come here to create opportunity, they come here to build up the community. But instead, there's these people who obviously don't really care about what their goals are. They're just trying to, they see somebody that looks different from them, and they say, well, this isn't the type of culture that I want. And they're trying to end it really just by creating this bad legislation.
And Michelle, we talked about these bills, and we hope that by the time that this airs, the tuition equity bill would be law, so that it helps those people. And we hope that the DACA nurses bill becomes law, so that it helps people. We know now that SB 411 is done for, and we're happy. It's a victory that could have been avoided. The bill shouldn't have been presented to begin with, but we're past that. Just looking forward, what do you, as an immigration advocate, as someone that has worked with a lot of these communities, not only here in Arkansas, but outside, you know, in different states across the country, what do you want for the immigrant community in regards to what are the wish list that we as an immigrant community need in order to live our lives? And this is talking about the undocumented community. Can you let the people know that might not be aware of what we're still lacking, and what kind of bills would help our community, specifically the undocumented community that is in a limbo right now?
Well, I actually think I would need to talk to a whole lot more people to be able to get like a good grasp of that. Because if I just base it off of like my family and my friends and the people that I know, that's still not an accurate representation of Arkansas immigrants and all the nuances that exist in between, you know, mixed status families and all these kinds of things. So I'm not sure. I would have to get back to you on that and like do a little like research campaign of my own. But I think a lesson that I've personally learned after getting excited about DACA and, you know, kind of like putting my hopes on these different bills and, you know, people that we look up to in the national sphere and then the local sphere is that we should be scared of being complacent and of deciding like, okay, well, like this is good enough because we know we deserve more. We know we deserve, and I don't think the goal is citizenship because as Alice will probably say when she comes onto the program, citizenship doesn't mean that you're gonna stop being profiled or having injustices happen to you, because there's so many more factors that go into that. Socioeconomic status, you know, a whole lot of other things. And so I don't think that is necessarily what we all want. That's not what we aspire to. I think that's kind of the thing. We aspire to, you know, have equal rights in the simplest of like terms, I guess. Right,
because even people with DACA still can't vote. You know, so
exactly, and they're can't get
for the whole country. So they're being represented without their actual voice being heard.
And they're being asked to provide, you know, proof of their legal status, but then they can't apply for the lottery scholarship or federal aid, and those are some of the requirements that are asked for of anybody else.
What are the other things that you also know that the undocumented community can't qualify for? I think that's one of the good things to talk about. You know, like for example, a lot of people don't qualify for health insurance as well, right? And there's also, they don't qualify for welfare as well, you know, or food stamps as well.
So a lot of like means tested benefits out there, and people get it confused because maybe you have a family with citizen children, sorry, and they qualify for those means tested benefits, but the parents don't. But obviously the parents are the ones picking out the WIC food and like having the envelope to present, but it's all under the child's name. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ones benefiting from it directly. But I think among the things that I would ask for is for us to not be afraid to have these conversations around, you know, what what things we're willing to compromise and what we're not, and to be kind of more informed about them, and to not be afraid to question advocates. You know, just because an advocacy organization, you know, puts out an alert or does something doesn't mean that you can't ask them for their reasoning, or ask them, you know, how did you get from point A to point B, that we can ask more from our state legislators just because they pass some great bills. You know, I feel like we might sometimes like be scared to do those things because we see these people being held so highly, you know, in our society. And sometimes we forget that they, you know, were elected or have been, you know, voted into that position or were appointed or whatever. But it's still like if they're in a position where they're doing something for the community, then they're allowed to be held accountable by that same community.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with constructive criticism or to just ask questions, and so we shouldn't be afraid to do that. You know.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's important in our generation, especially. You know, immigrants come in and they can be pretty scared about speaking out, but luckily we've grown up in a place of more safety, especially you and I, since we are citizens, and luckily you are a citizen too. And that does give us a little bit more freedom, and I think that does come with a bit of an obligation and a responsibility to speak out against these things and ask the hard questions of the people that are representing us, and tell them that, hey, you know, some stuff is good, but we need more. So more advocacy, more inclusivity of the people that are representing us.
Yeah, and even for the people that don't have status in this country, but you live here, you go through things that are valid and important, and you're allowed to make those points and to make them known. Because when I was undocumented, I really didn't think that anything that I had to say, you know, people would be like, but can you vote? And I'd be like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to talk to you. You know, I was like, okay, I guess you don't have to talk to me, but I can talk to your constituents. You know, Womack. And so I think that part of my responsibility whenever I was organizing and I was doing the knocking on the doors was to make sure that people felt empowered and emboldened by the fact that they're here and they're going through it, you know, and they're allowed to have opinions and let them be known, and, you know, to be considered throughout all of this. You know, just because you're not physically there or able to make the meetings or, you know, have that accessibility to it, you know, we should also challenge ourselves to be more accessible. But just because you don't have that direct accessibility doesn't mean that your opinion is less valid. Just because you come into the movement today doesn't mean that your opinion doesn't count. You know?
Yeah, you still have experience.
And we thank you for being here. We'll be inviting you in future episodes too. Like I was telling Manny, there's an episode that we want to do that will be focused on like Selena. So we'll like
we're all Selena fans, right?
Yeah, we're all Selena fans. So we'll have like a Selena tribute show as well that we'll invite you.
Are we all gonna dress up too?
We could.
I was about to say we need some costumes.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that. So we're looking forward.
But you guys are gonna be Los Dinos? No, I'm
we could like the
we don't have to abide by gender rules.
We could do that. We can do that as well. I kind of wanted to be more like AB, but like I can do that as well. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, we're glad to have you, like I said, and we thank you for coming and just not only educating the people, but educating us, because there's stuff that we don't know that you're teaching us by.
I'm just babbling, but I think
facts,
it's so. I love having conversations like this because you learn so much. You know, at first I was like so afraid for people to like disagree with me or me say something like wrong, and that has made me be quiet in situations where like later on I'm like, dang, I really wish I would have spoken up and said something. You know, especially with like representatives and stuff like that, where, you know, maybe I was thinking of like a really good point or whatever, and I was just like, you know what, they're just going to shut me down, or, you know, they're going to belittle me, and my opinion's not going to be that valid. I don't hold this, like, you know, respectable position in the community, and so, like, it's not as a big deal type of thing. You know, people are not going to turn heads to, like, listen, but it's still important, and that's what I want people to know, too, and so I think that's just
every voice matters.
And one of the things also that that I was talking to somebody like a week ago, and every time your name comes up in different circles, it's always positive. You know, people always say how great you are, how much they learn from you. It's true, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but people like you, and specifically the younger crowd, like people that are younger than me, because you're like probably like 2 or 3 years younger than me.
How old are you?
I'm 27.
I'm 25. Okay.
2 years younger than me. Like people like you always inspire me because you work so selflessly with your intentions of just helping out the community, and that's very inspirational not only to me but to a lot of people that look up to you. So thank you for your work. And we'll have you again on the show in the near future.
Sounds good.
But we'll be right back after this quick break, and stick around. Thank you.
Michelle is a superstar.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that she came and we got to chat with her, because that was just like, she has so much knowledge, and obviously super passionate. I'm glad that she was able to come on. She's great for our community.
Same here, man. Same here. And now I'm excited about our musical performance for the night.
Yeah. Our boy Thunderman.
Yes.
He's also super talented.
Yes. And he's going to be performing for us today. And thank you all for sticking around for this show. And we're going to go over to his performance right now.
Springdale, Browntown, that's where I'm found. My wheels go round, round, my homies just lounge. We're holding our crown for the city most gritty. Outsiders, look what you found. Springdale, Browntown, that's where I'm found. My wheels go round, round, my homies just lounge. We're holding our crown for the city most gritty. Outsiders, look what you found. Springdale, Browntown, sunk low in the sea. My homies got the heat. We riding around the east side, nobody wants beef. We known in these streets for vigilant good deeds, and we proceed to live the life we lead. Some little homies hard-headed, and they come in the cruise. They get caught with the heat, their mama leave they ass bruised. Get caught with the weed and get expelled out of school, like what the principal did to you for red or blue. Now I'm too old to be stupid, play pool for a cash bet. The Cherokee smoking blunts for Mayans and Aztecs. Fuck boys, we laugh at, the native accept death, leaving us to live the life we choose. Fuck the rest. Police try to question us, but they don't really do shit. Italians in Tawny Town told me I move quick. It's Springdale, Browntown, that's where I'm found. My wheels go round, round, my homies just lounge. We're holding our crown for the city most gritty. Outsiders, look what you found. Springdale, Browntown, that's where I'm found. My wheels go round, round, my homies just lounge. We're holding our crown for the city most gritty. Outsiders, look what you found. Springdale, Browntown. This is the part where usually when I perform live, I get the crowd to chant "Fuck Donald Trump," you know. Yeah. Yahweh mark for fish. Need some lunch for the day so my mind stays rich. Little rock this shit while we're sparking the split. Pistols cocked to aim at opposite clicks. Let's get off this shit so I can have a good vibe. But I gotta keep my 12 by my side at all times. Oshay spirit collides the western hemisphere. People love the sun, emptying our hearts of fear. Marshallese culture surrounds us, making us feel beautiful. Laos in the house, everybody's bilingual. Springdale, my people, it ain't all black and white, but don't none of you white people try to start a fight. We word like World Star, informants recording. These Native Americans just trying not to get deported. The scout where the face is, no choice but to embrace it. 20 minutes east of that Cherokee Nation. It's Springdale, Browntown, that's where I'm found. My wheels go round, round, my homies just lounge. We're holding our crown for the city most gritty. Outsiders, look what you found. Springdale, Browntown, that's where I'm found. My wheels go round, round, my homies just lounge. We're holding our crown for the city most gritty. Outsiders, look what you found. Springdale, Browntown.